Bitcoin's just broken $40,000 and it's well and truly on its way to our target of $42,000 before the halving. Now, we put out these calls months ago based on what we're seeing in the charts, our cycle analysis, our timing, price, and patterns of the market. Many didn't want to believe it at the time. I can understand. It's pretty difficult to get your head around it, especially when Bitcoin was below the $32,000 level. But here we are, just a few $1,000s away from that target price. Today's video, I want to share with you some of the insider information that I get privileged to, that unfortunately the majority do not. And of course, continue to update if this is going to play out. Are we going to hit 42? Are we going to hit 48? And what we should do. Should we be buying or should we be selling based purely on our TA and the data that I've been sharing with you here on the channel for many, many months now. Make sure you smash up that like button and share the content with a friend to help them out through these tough times of FOMO, our greed, and of course our fear as well, which I suspect will follow after we get through this exuberance to the upside of BTC. Hopefully you know where you're at. You're at Jason Pezzino's YouTube channel. Let's see if we can get to 300,000 before the end of the year and start off our fresh 2024 over 300,000. There's 3 out of 10 of you that haven't subscribed yet and only 7% female. So let's see if we can bump up that data. All right, guys, there's a 7-day free trial on the GameSwing indicator, but I'll talk about that a little more later in the video. So BTC, it's up at 40,000. I'll share with you just some of the news headlines first. I'm going to get into that insider information that most don't get privileged to because it comes from the social media side of things. But what we're seeing now, there's all these headlines. I mean, this is October 27, but you can see that it comes through the market and it'll continue to show itself as Bitcoin rallies up to these levels, taking out a lot of short traders who say that they are shorting the market on the way up, but there is no way they'll be able to afford to keep shorting the market. Anyway, what we do have is a shortage of Bitcoin on exchanges. People always want to know why. Why is this going up? What are the reasons here? And hopefully I've shared with you that it's not that important to know why at the time. It's important to follow the trend because, well, that's how you make your money, is following the trend as opposed to trying to figure out why and then preempt what the next why is going to be. Just follow the charts. It is so much easier and saves you a hell of a lot of time. So spot ETFs applications may be approved altogether. We've looked at this on the channel already. We've got all the spot ETFs going on here. And basically, I'm trying to build this up so that you can see the amount of hype surrounding the ETF. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think as we get towards the middle and the late stages of the cycle, this may continue to be hyped up when in fact it might be a good time to be selling. Now, on a short-term basis, medium term at best, let's say that we do continue to see this happen through into January. All of the information or all of the hype about the ETFs and the shortages on the exchanges, which continue to lead that price up, that may in fact cause one of the peaks. But of course, we're going to be following the charts to identify that before it happens. So what I'm saying here is we've got hype at the time when the market is already rising, and it's been rising for over 70 days now since that September low. That's where we have to measure from. That's the most important point. But the hype comes out towards the end. So although I might be positive and bullish about Bitcoin hitting 42, it's not that far away. And I think cryptos will also be coming towards the end of their at least mini cycle. Now, macro speaking, you must know that I am macro bullish on the charts, which I'll show you soon. But there always has to be pullbacks. And I don't think we're ready just yet for that major boom that we typically see in the second half of the bull market. So we're still in that first half. We also have liquidations happening, the shorts getting squeezed out of their positions. You've got a lot of red here, BTC, Ethereum, because of course ETH has just broken out of its $2,200 level. And that of course is going to destroy a lot of the shorts. Of course, you always hear traders saying, I think it's got to come back here and the market's got to come down, it's gone up too far. Don't ever buck the trend. As a pro tip, don't buck the trend. You'll only get screwed. Maybe you've got your own story of trying to do this. We've all tried to do it early in our careers because we think we just want to be a hero to try and short the market when it's doing the opposite. And it must feel really good if we can get that big short while the market is rising. But at the end of the day, it's just easier to go with the trend. You make more money that way. Speaking of trends and cycles, a great post here. Failure to believe in cycles increases the risk of repeating past mistakes. So I don't necessarily like the word believe, but many people don't believe there are cycles. And if we forget or we don't understand that there are cycles, well, just go straight through here. You risk repeating what has already happened. That's what I'm leading into when it comes to this insider information that the social media gets privy to. But you can find a lot of this on Twitter as well if you are following what's happening in the markets. That leads me to the charts and the move up that Bitcoin's just done. We're at 39,800. Where have we come from? Where are those next targets? What's happening to crypto? Selling, buying, what is going on, especially with a lot of the hype that's come out in the last 24 hours? Well, we're roughly around 33% complete of the bull market. This is a nice little picture of the bull market. Now, I know there's a lot of people that will say this is the bull market and that's the only part of the bull market, or they may even say that the bull market lasts for this period here and then the period rolling over, because that is the biggest hype in the bull market. But if we are pure technical analysts, and at least the analysis that I choose to use, which is Gann and Wyckoff, you measure from the exact low to the exact top. It just takes all the guesswork out of the game and makes things so much easier than trying to guess different areas of market sentiment. If you can marry the two together, life becomes so much easier. Got the low, you got the high, 1,060 odd days. Previous cycle, the low, the high, 1,060 odd days. Previous cycle, same sort of deal, about 1,100 days in this one here. And then the down moves, the bear markets, roughly about 360 to 420 days as well. So that comes out to be your sort of 12 to 14 months of a downtrend. That's how we were able to capture the low area. I'm never trying to pick the exact low. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make any sense. And I don't make any more money from trying to do that, because every time we try and capture the low, we could just be buying the falling knife. But if we can identify a range of the low, it's going to make life a hell of a lot easier just to keep dollar cost averaging in at bigger amounts during a potential low period, which can take many, many months, which is just what's happened from June through to March. So June 2022 through to March, getting that low, and as the market starts to come out. So then we can start to plant the start point, and then we can measure from that area there rather than sort of guess as to where we are. So I think we're still in this sort of range here, but in this sort of section here where the volatility kind of starts to pick up at this point, we will likely have another pullback. I'm not saying it's going to be a black swan pullback, but I think we definitely got some sort of pullback to come. You can see we're starting to get close to the end of this 18-month period, which takes us out to the first half of 2024. So this one here is for the weekly count and major capitulation news events. So we've seen major capitulation news events. We've done the time count, we got to the low. Now we're starting to climb out of that low, which essentially becomes the wall of worry. If you can imagine a wall and the market is being held up by the wall at higher and higher prices, along with the major fearful capitulation news along the way, but the price gets higher, well, that's a bull market. It's a wall of worry, meaning that bad news cannot push the price lower than it was previously on the other very, very major bad news. That is the meaning of a wall of worry. FTX collapse, next major news. These things were huge at the time, massive. The banking crisis, remember in March of 2023? Major banking crisis. Then for crypto, we had through that May-June period, there was more fears of Binance being sued and all sorts of things going on when it came to the SEC and crypto. Then the stock markets also had a pullback through August, September, and October. So we got the fears of the macro environment also collapsing yet again. That caused another double bottom. And we should all know from TA that double bottoms, if they bounce away this hard and fast, that is a fantastic signal that the double bottom is in play and we're looking likely to hit those next price targets. And that next price target is roughly around 42. So you can see that it's not too far away at this stage. The extreme news is coming out to help us get to that price point. We've looked at 7 weeks to the upside already, which is starting to get quite extended. So is now the time to be buying. Personally, for my own plans, I don't like to buy in these hype times. My buying happens when everyone is fearful at these lows. And I've put it out on the channel, we've talked to members about it as well, and used our analysis using the TA, the technical side, so the swing chart here that you can see on the yellow line, TI Gann Swing Indicator. As I said earlier on, we have a 7-day free trial of the TI Gann Swing Indicator, along with plenty of content to help explain how to use the swing indicator to set targets to the upside, to take profits to the downside, and to let us know when the market is turning, which is the next important part, looking at price targets. And then do we start to see the market turn to give us that pullback? Because the big question is, when does this happen? When are we getting the pullback? So in recent videos, we looked at the 7 weeks up, and many of the members know that the old 7 rule, a 7 to 10 bar rule, which means typically when markets see roughly 7 to 10 bars in the same direction, higher highs, higher lows, there will be some sort of correction. So remember that 7 to 10, roughly speaking, and we're in that zone now. That's roughly 7 weeks up. So we're in the next couple of weeks, we're looking like we will get some sort of pullback. Just how big of a pullback? Well, it can be anything here. You can see the smaller pullbacks, and in some cases, you've even got larger pullbacks here. There's one back further. There was about 14 weeks up, had quite significant pullback as well. So what we do then is watch for the swing chart. The swing chart here, you can see we had the pullback here on the 10th week, but then the market went up just after 1 week. So 1 week down, next week up, it broke the swing top. So that is the signal there. We're looking for a pullback, and then if it's not going to be a strong pullback, so a strong correction, you'll see the market turn around and typically break the swing top. So that is as clear as it can be in terms of an entry and an exit point for Bitcoin, and then of course over into cryptocurrencies as well. So we're going to continue following that up on the channel as we get closer to this target of 42K, which is the major 50% level. Plenty of other support and resistance along the way there, especially through September 2021. You can see the big dump in November of 2021 after the peak, banged right down there at 42K, and then the market sort of struggled around this point as it went on its monthly move to the upside before it got rejected and then collapsed from there. Now the next major level is at 48. So I'm drawing a box around 42 to $48,000 as a potential area of strong resistance, and then potentially we get a pullback from that point. Now, in terms of the wall of worry, this is on my Twitter, so you can go over, follow Twitter, and then use this pinned tweet to have a look at all the times in history that the market, well, the media has said the market should collapse based on all sorts of things, yet the market continued to put in lows and has now climbed to higher prices. So nice and simple there. So another tool that you could use as we lead into that 42K, I've talked about Bitcoin hitting 42K before the halving, but this is quite interesting as well. Just looking at the RSI in previous cycles here, we're on the monthly chart here. So looking at the macro, and we can go back to June 2016. It's run up to around 67, did it again in June 2019, ran up to about 66 points there on the RSI. We're still a few points away from that now, sitting at roughly 60.5. And from that area where it hit the 67, that was also at its 50% level back there. It also hit the 50% level of the bear market. So there's your 50%. And then it retraced from there. So as it hit it, it still had a pullback, pretty significant pullback there. And maybe we'll look to another pullback somewhere above the halfway point of 50. So keep a watch out here in case, doesn't mean it has to hit, but in case the RSI hits roughly around that sort of 65, 66, 67, and then looks to have a pullback within these timeframes. Now, in terms of these moves up, Bitcoin can go on pretty substantial moves to the upside with its monthly. You can see we're at 3 months up so far. Previously, it's done 6 months. It's also done 5 months. It's done 7 months to the upside in the bull market. So if you get your measuring points right, and some people are going to measure it from all different places, that's absolutely fine. They do their own analysis. I do mine. And in terms of the exact low to the exact top, not looking at this top, but you've got multiple times where the market's done pretty significant moves in terms of straight months up before it has a correction. Doesn't mean it has to happen exactly the same, but 3 months, we're getting closer to that period where it should look to have some sort of correction. 3 months now, we've broken that top. We're in December. Let's see where December closes. The previous cycle, it did 10 months to the upside using the Gann swing indicator. As I said, the link's in the top of the video description if you want to learn more about that. 7 months up, then 3 months up, then 5 months up. So that entire bull market after the accumulation, it had pretty significant moves to the upside and basically straight sort of months to the upside, even though there are some red months in between. It didn't necessarily break down from the previous monthly low. So now that we're putting a few of these things together in terms of time, we're looking at it in terms of the pattern here as well for the RSI and the pattern on the chart. We're looking at price targets as well. You can start to see that we're getting towards the end of this move, even though it could be December, towards the end of December. Maybe it even spills into the early part of January. It feels like a long time in crypto, but remember, we've been going up since November, since that bottom in November, and we are now in the early stage of December. So over 12 months now, it has been going up, even though there has been some pretty big scares. The market hasn't put in a new low, therefore it has been going up for 12 months. So the move has been getting extended. That's the main point I want to make here. Now, in terms of time to the breakout of the 50% level, what's happened in the past is the market has taken about 22 months to finally break out of the 50% level here. So we've tested it early on, it's come back to try and test it, and it basically did that final test before it broke out at 22 months. The previous cycle, same sort of deal here, tested it towards the end of the 22 months, and then it finally broke out at the 22 months. And the breakout I'm looking at here is a close on the monthly above the 50% level. So something nice and clear and measurable, not sort of iffy whiffy stuff, but nice and measurable so that you know almost for sure, because there's no guarantees in the market, but it gives you so much more confidence that it's likely we're about to go on this next big leg up, take out the all-time high, and then go into an absolute mania where the majority of people will call that the bull market. Meanwhile, you know the market's been going on for nearly 2 years from the low. So that's what I'm talking about when these things start to get towards the end, the hype gets into the market. So 22 months, nice clean move out. We had a test before the halving, which was around July. Where do we currently sit? We are about 12 months in, November to December is about 13 months in. 22 months takes us to roughly around September of 2024, so Q3, until we get the final breakout here, a close above. Things might be different this time. That's absolutely okay. We've been following the market, so let's just keep doing the same thing. In terms of where we are, 13 months in, we're looking for a test before the halving, and the halving is April of 2024. So that means we have about 4 to 5 months before the halving. So potentially we're going to get this test of 42K within the next 4 to 5 months. And I guess right now it seems pretty inevitable that it's going to happen relatively soon. But it didn't look inevitable when we were back here at 25, 26, 27K. So just keep that in mind as well as it's taken its time to climb up to these points. Remember back here, everyone was talking about a major collapse past 20K. They were talking about a collapse past 15K. Guess what? You've been following, and we are now at $40,000. So I'm going to take this back out to 22 months. Keep an eye on that as well. This one here blew my mind. April 2019, we saw a move very, very similar, this sort of pattern where it climbed up and it was just squeezing out the shorts and then busted the shorts, then continued to squeeze out more and more as it continued to climb and then bust out the shorts again. So pretty similar. And in terms of timing itself to the days, I've married it up here so it's the exact days as well. And you can see that it just went on this last move. That happened on Sunday. Imagine if it happened during a US opening hour, like a Monday session or Tuesday session, maybe we would have seen something massive like this. But you can see the market has broken out again to the upside, almost to the exact timing of this. And again, this is sort of leading towards maybe this move is getting a little bit extended now. It can't go on forever like this. And what I've done is point out to you in terms of time and in terms of price, where we're looking at the monthly swing top before the market collapsed, and then the 50% level. So I'm drawing a box around $48,000 to $42,000, so $42,000 to $48,000. ETH, similar sort of thing here. It finally broke out of its 2,200, but you're waiting on some monthly swings here. And if this is getting towards the end of the move, just keep that in mind as well. We don't want to be getting in onto these moves late in the stage. So basically, from the beginning of this video to this point, I've tried to show you how we got to those lows, why those lows are important, why the market hasn't broken down from those lows, why this might be coming towards the end of the move, even though the move could last a little bit longer. And for me, a little bit could be weeks, maybe a couple of months, because of the macro aspect that we're looking at here, where the overall trend is potentially 3 years to the upside. So 2 months within 3 years is a shorter period of time. There can be still great moves to the upside if you are trading short term. That's absolutely fine. Different kettle of fish there. But the other thing I want to add to that now, which is the insider information, if you will, is looking at what happens with the social media side of things and how this information gets out there. Because I see what you guys are looking at. So this is it here. I can see what the audience watches. I can see what videos most people watch. And I can see what information those other channels are putting out. And then I can basically trade against that. At least that's my view and from my analysis, because typically the bullish stuff comes out closer to the end, and it just depends on your own particular time frame. Now, I've got this article up here because what happens on exchanges, and this goes for everything, the stock markets, it goes for the options markets, which we can see in this particular article here. It happens in crypto. It happens everywhere around the world. So when you say manipulation, sure, there is manipulation absolutely everywhere. But if you can read a chart, it's going to put you, at least I think, somewhat in front of that manipulation, because the manipulation always comes out on the chart. FTX, they take funds and they put into their trading firm, and then they trade against essentially the losers, because there's a lot of losers out there in the market. I'm sure we can all agree on that. Over 90% of people lose. And so if 90% of people are losing, well, you just go and see what they're trading on and what positions they're taking and trade against it. It's pretty much that simple. There's obviously more to it. I don't know that much more, but that's my theory, or that's my understanding of how the exchanges did that. And essentially, options exchanges also do that. You've got brokers, stock brokers, that will also do that. And they'll just trade against their clients, because majority of people typically lose. So with that in mind, nothing against the people in the channels themselves, okay? Because this is what people want to see. Just remember that. The majority of people want to see this stuff. That's why they're watching it. So nothing against any of these people. Take that and understand that now. We can easily see what people are watching here. And like I said, I've got information to this because essentially I've got a YouTube channel. So hopefully I can share something with you and you can see what other people are watching. Now, what they're watching are these sorts of things here. This is what will get people wrecked towards the end of the cycle. Right now, it might not be so bad, but if we look at this, 100 million of Bitcoin is a 0.05% allocation. Imagine if they do 0.5% allocation. Where would that price go? And what are these Bitcoin price targets that we should see at the end of the cycle? Imagine if they put in 1%. Imagine if they put in 5%. And then you do the calculation and say, well, Bitcoin should be worth 500,000, $1 million, etc., etc. And that's what they will do towards the end of the cycle, telling us that Bitcoin should be worth $3 million or whatever, because if all the funds put in X amount of money and it's only 1% of their portfolio allocation, then blah, 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 Bitcoin should be worth this. Now, I don't think this is going to be the case. I don't think that these institutions and these funds are going to allocate more and more and more as the cycle continues on towards that peak. I'm happy to be wrong, but so far we've seen this in multiple different cycles where they talk about funds allocating X amount of money and it doesn't get there. And people are left wondering, why didn't it happen this time? If we can think back just to the previous cycles, 2017, even if you weren't around, this was my first cycle that I got in, right around here, we were told that Bitcoin should hit 50,000 or 40,000 based on whatever at the time. More money is coming, etc., etc. You guys might remember 2021, the same sort of thing was said again. Bitcoin's got to hit $100,000. It's going to hit 300,000 by September. There was a lot of people talking about that as well, and it doesn't get there. So if we start to base ourselves on these specific price prediction targets and they don't get there, well then what is your plan to sell? And hopefully I've given you a little bit of an insight as to what to look for when it comes to price. Look for some of these areas where there has been resistance in the past. It is going to be extremely difficult to put that sort of information to the side, especially as the hype gets up. And if today is anything to go by with this market hitting $40,000. We've got this little bit of hype. Can you imagine what it's going to be like when Bitcoin hits 50, when it hits $70,000? If it does hit 70,000 and if it breaks to a new all-time high, can you imagine the hype and how these sorts of targets are going to seem far more logical at the hype time than what they did at the bottom of the market? So really keep in mind what the chart is telling us. Have our price targets based on previous resistance levels. Choose whatever analysis you want. What I've talked about is the Gann swing indicator, which has kept us and our members quite safe in the market. Look at areas where the market breaks down from this swing indicator, because that is going to be a first signal that maybe those price targets are not going to be met. And then, of course, the time targets as well, which we have looked at here, with the market just basically running out of time. If we get towards the end of this move, somewhere late 2025, and those targets are still, for Bitcoin, still sitting around 100K, well, then maybe we're just not going to make it to that $250 or $300 or $500,000, because when time runs out, it's over. Take what you can get and move on. Keep yourself safe, protect your funds, and don't worry about what's going on over here, what's being said, because essentially no one has to follow this, and these are just all theories within themselves. So that's what I'm doing with Bitcoin as we lead into this little bit of a hype area. They're my price targets. I've given you some time targets. You've got some homework to do. Hit the like and subscribe button if you find value. And of course, share it with a friend so they can understand this too. There were so many people that got wrecked last cycle and the cycle before, and there will be more and more people that get wrecked in this cycle. So if you want to keep some friends and family safe, hopefully you can share some content with them. I'd be forever grateful, and I'll see you guys at the next video as well. Until then, take care and peace out.